we know you've written so much about it as it relates to the spirit of the false prophet, the spirit of the Antichrist, the entire beast system that has its roots going a long way back into a lot of the globalism and the elites and everything else. And again, this didn't start last week. So we see all these events. We see it. I mean, it is like a steamroller coming, and we're watching it. We saw the kind of a precursor of the practice, at least as it relates to the World Economic Forum and World Health Organization during COVID, how they sought to maintain or at least come bring tyranny in and mandates using that. Now we also see, the FedNow system, the payment systems. We see the digital public infrastructure beginning, going full steam ahead. We see Australia coming up with their ID. You can go online. We have it on our Facebook. I put the video up. They're trying to tell you how wonderful it is. Sign up voluntarily to have all your IDs in one spot. They said they're going to be in by the end of the year. So here's the question for us: it's twofold. One is, how much could we see prior to the rapture? And secondly, when in all of this tyranny, digital IDs and others, systems, cashless, when does it come to the point of being a sin in participating by force? I mean, right now, look, I don't carry cash. I haven't carried cash forever. Just not convenient for me. Everything is credit card based. I get miles, blah, blah, blah. So in one sense, I'm already part of that. Direct deposit, everything else for years. So am I sinning by being cashless?
Yeah, absolutely not. I think so many of these issues are wisdom issues and not necessarily moral issues. Like you, we are using technology to our advantage and for convenience as long as we can, but we're doing it eyes wide open, knowing that at some point this could be used against us, and we've made preparations when that time comes to be able to make the hard sacrifices and live apart from the system. Mm-hmm. But it's certainly not a sin today to take advantage of the technological systems for convenience and to be more efficient. The Bible says redeem the time. So we're reaching more people with the gospel through technology. We're able to be more efficient and as you said, earn miles and then, use those points for ministry purchases and tasks and trips and so forth. So I don't think that it's a moral issue in that regard. I think from a wisdom standpoint, what we've suggested, and again, I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm just giving you based on my studied opinion of this for many, many years. I really want people to understand if you can't touch it, you don't own it. That's the underlying principle. So therefore, you need to be prepared for that day to come prior to the rapture, mm-hmm. which it may, when they flip a switch and whatever your portfolio was in terms of ones and zeros on a server somewhere is gone. You can't access it. You can't log in, whether that's bank accounts, retirement accounts, investment accounts, you name it. So, only keep in the intangible realm that which you would be comfortable losing if it came to that. By contrast, if you can walk into the next room in your house, open the safe and put your hands on it, you own it. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't just mean cash and doesn't just mean gold and silver. Yeah, right, yeah. It's any kind of commodity that could be helpful in an end of the world as we know it scenario. And so we go into this in great detail in chapter 9 of Spirit of the False Prophet, which is all about preparedness. Mm-hmm. And I think it raises a lot of issues for people to think through. We give you some lists. Folks can check it out, by the way, at spiritofthefalseprophet.org. But we give you lists of supplies, food, even scenarios to consider that you may not have thought about. What if this happens? So, yeah, I mean, I get questions all the time. I know you do too, Mondo, about, the mark of the beast. And, if I sign up for the CBDC, am I taking the mark of the beast, that kind of thing? No, the mark of the beast is not going to be implemented until 3.5 years into the tribulation, well after the rapture. But are the mechanisms and systems in place to roll that out? Sure, that could happen today. It is happening.
They're trying. I mean, I think there was a phrase that I forgot the name. I have it written down, but I know exactly who it was. It was the CEO of BlackRock. He came out and he was at Davos, and he said there's coming a time very soon where we are going to hear this word. We are going to tokenize all of our assets. Well, I mean, they manage 10 trillion, 20 trillion of assets. So this idea of tokenization is going to become everybody's going to hear it. And what that means is that what you just referenced, all of our finances out in the digital world right now. I mean, again, let's say I had $500,000 or $1 million in assets, which I do not, but let's say I did, and I went to the bank and I said, I want to withdraw all that. I'm going to get it on a truck. I want to deliver it to my house. Well, they don't have the money in there.
Absolutely
I mean, they
not.
don't have the cash. They don't have the hard. So everything's digital already to some degree. And so by tokenizing everything, including, he was talking about land. He was talking about houses. Anything that you can imagine that you could touch is going to be tokenized to such a degree to exist in this new digital world. And so that could be, we know that it's heading that direction. And so when it comes to that point, could there be certain, like for example, could they outlaw cash? They started talking about it during COVID because of sanitary reasons. Some places said, we don't take cash here. We don't want any germs. It's all credit card only. I was in Seattle not too long ago. Same thing. We walked in. They're like, no, we don't take cash here. I was like, really? I don't even carry cash. My wife did. But I was like, well, I got it covered. Swipe, and then the Amazon store, I walked in. I didn't even need anything. I just had my phone and I walked in and I walked out. I didn't even register. So when we think about this, as we get into this and we get closer and closer, my question as well is, again, pastorally speaking, is the church prepared for this? And how much, again, coming back, we want to say to them, hey, look, if you are in this, it might not be, as wise or maybe as good steward as you can. But if you're forced into this, the 75-year-old widow, that she's alone in this world. She's not going to go out and she doesn't have gold. She doesn't have anything. She doesn't have 3 months supply of food. She's living from her Social Security. She loves the Lord and she has no one. Is she sinning by all of a sudden they've tokenized everything and now she's like, well, okay, well, I'm going to get my food every week and I'm just surviving now. Is she sinning at all?
Yeah, the short answer is no. I mean, the clear answer is no. I think everyone's situation is different.
Yep.
I think, when possible, you want to avoid signing up for the digital global ID. I mean, that's
if
a hill.
possible, right?
Yeah, that's a hill we won't die on personally. I mean, just like there are other lines in the sand for us. Once we've done that, then you have zero chance of surviving. I mean, they own you, they control you, they can do everything, track everything you're doing. So that's the point in which we implement our bug out plans and our secret place to live off the land, and we tap into our supplies and stockpiling, and we just try to live off the grid. We go off the grid at that point. I won't do it. But if someone else does that mean they're sinning? Of course not. I mean, it's a personal decision. You talked about tokenizing. That's the whole point of the digital monetary and global ID system. They want to tokenize your carbon footprint. They want to tokenize your social credit score. They want to tokenize your health report. So you might show up at the grocery store and, like we've all experienced this at one time or another, where you show up, you put out your credit card, and the cashier says, I'm sorry, sir, it's declined. Well, maybe it was a fraud attempt or for whatever reason, but in that moment, you're like, oh, bummer. And so you just pull out another credit card, right?
Yep.
Then you call your credit card and figure out what happened. Well, when this CBDC is fully rolled out and implemented, there's not going to be another alternative. You're going to go up and they're going to say, I'm sorry, sir, you're declined. You had too much sugar yesterday.
Yep.
Or you took too many trips last week. You exceeded your carbon footprint. Or you've traveled too far. That's what's behind these smart cities and keeping you restrained. So everything's going to come down to that digital
They've telegraphed
currency.
this. This isn't conspiracy. They've telegraphed this many trips, this much here, this many miles. I mean, they absolutely, and even now, as even people, like, again, we've talked about the pre-programmable chips and stuff and cards. Well, it's already in place. If you look at people who are on food stamps, they can't go buy alcohol or cigarettes.
No.
Automatically go, sorry, sir, well, you can't buy that.
Yeah.
And so this isn't unprecedented, but to come to the point of what you just said is, hey, based on what we've been watching you, and all we got to do is look at Canada and these other places where they are already talking and implementing these things.
Yeah, it's just a matter of adding more to the list.
Yes.
Now you can't buy alcohol, you can't buy this. Well, now you can't buy anything. We just turn it off. So it really is, the technology's there. It's already been implemented. It's just a matter of how
Maturation,
far do
yeah.
they how far do they take it. Several people have bragged about it. Tom Mutton from the Bank of England, he's the CBDC director. He said there's some socially beneficial outcomes from CBDCs in preventing activity which we see as socially harmful. Augustine Carstens, we've all seen him 1,000 times. He's the Bank for International Settlements. He says the key with a CBDC is that the central bank would have absolute control. That's what they want.
That's what they
So,
want.
I mean, it really is a key. So, to me, it's kind of that eyes wide open concept. Now, for what it's worth, and I've talked about this a lot, personally, I don't see them rolling out the national CBDC in America the way they're doing in Australia and many other countries. Australia is by no means the first.
Yeah.
I don't see them rolling that out in America until after the collapse of America. In other words, there are just too many people hip to it that are not going to go for
But
it.
it doesn't mean they're going to stop implementing the infrastructure.
Oh, no, the infrastructure is already there. FedNow is really the backbone, the back end to a CBD system. A lot of people are confused about what FedNow is. I go into this in my book. It's just the sort of the backbone.
It's infrastructure. It really is. I mean, with the crypto and the blockchain, they're loving that because they are able to document everything along the blockchain. So I think that's one of the reasons why they've supported crypto for so long until they hijack it. To some degree.
They'll roll it out kind of like they did with the vaccines, franchised tyranny. They're not going to send out the army into the streets, drag you from your homes, but they don't have to. So I think I don't mean to say that CBDC is not going to be an issue in America prior to the collapse of America. I think it will be, but it'll be in different ways. It's going to be, franchise tyranny, not nationally mandated the way they're easily able to do it in other countries. But I do think that after whatever unfreezing event is coming that brings about the end of America, which I've talked a lot about the America problem from the Luciferian perspective. We're the one nation standing in the way. So they got to do something to crumble it, and they got multiple weapons in their arsenal. I think after that, as we rise from the ashes, and again, all of this could be before the rapture. As we rise from the ashes and join on with the one world, new world order, at that point they're going to say, hey, you want to be part of the one world system, you're going to have the one world ID.
I think, as we summarize here, that how much could we see before the rapture? Quite a bit. I think the church, if anybody has the mentality that we're out of here, man, the rapture's coming, we're not going to see any of this. God is not going to allow any difficulty for the church. He's not going to allow us to have to make any hard choices. I don't think that's. I think
naive.
That's very naive and foolish. So this is why we pray up now. We seek wisdom now. Again, we have these conversations, and ultimately that's why I asked it the way I did. Is when does it become a sin? And I've heard people out there already that say very clearly that if you get a digital ID or you do this, you might as well just take the mark of the beast. I'm like, well, that's a little bit of an overstatement.
Right,
And because of that, again, we have people that are older. They're like, hey, I'm alone. I'm a widow. What am I supposed to do? This guy says this. Am I sinning? I don't want to sin against my Lord. I don't want to be left in the rapture. And so you have people manipulating the situation, coming off as authorities, and they present a very good case of bringing guilt and condemnation. But at the end of the day, what verse do you have for that?
And it's tragic because they're scaring people and fomenting fear. A better approach would be to come alongside some of these elderly people and be there for them. Hey, if things fall apart, provide food for them. Let them move in with you.
Exactly.
Just don't be scared. But absolutely, those that may be listening to this, because I know people watch Prophecy Watchers all the time. Don't fall prey to that fear. God's not given us a spirit of fear. And if the time comes, your heart. God looks at the heart, right? And so if you're just trying to get by, it's not, the mark of the beast will not happen until after the rapture.
Not even close.
Not even close. Whether it's an injection or we have the same thing with vaccine remorse. People have been so anti-vax, which I'm anti-vax, that they've convinced people if you took it, somehow you took the mark of the beast, which is absurd. And I think that those people are going to be held accountable for those words that they've said.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Matthew 12:36, be careful, every idle word.